Good morning, class. Today we'll be discussing section 1-5, which is using formulas in geometry. Again, you can read through your objective, which is students will apply formulas for perimeter, area, and circumference. And then also the number 5. If this is the iPad class, though, I don't know if it will be put into your problems or not. So again, write down the section title in your notes. You need a half page of notes on this. We'll be discussing perimeter, area, and circumference. So where in the world could you use perimeter, area, or circumference? Anybody? Oh yes, over there. Well, I think if I was to paint my house, I would be using area. Yes, very good. What about over here? What do you think? Well, if I was to fence my yard, that would be something that I use for perimeter. Yes, very good, very good. And what about a circumference? So a lot of those circular swimming pools, the above ground ones, that might have something to do with circumference or distance around. That is very good. Yeah, like maybe putting up the sides, knowing how much you would need to put up your swimming pool for the sides of the swimming pool. Very good. Boxes for all you guys. Alright, so what is the perimeter? Well, that's going to be the sum of all the side lengths. So the distance around a figure would be its perimeter. And what is area? Well, that's the number of non-overlapping square units of a given size that will exactly cover the figure. So if we're going to wrap this with wrapping paper, that would be dealing with area. We're going to cover the surfaces. So the amount of space on the inside of the perimeter would be its area. Alright, let's go ahead and move on. We got some formulas since the title was using formulas. For a rectangle, we can find its perimeter by taking 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Or we could find its area by taking the length times the width. Well, if we're dealing with the square, a square is a rectangle, so these would also work for a square, but we could shorten it up a little bit because the perimeter is equal to 4 times a side length, where the area is equal to the side length squared. Notice that would give us the same thing as length times width because they would both be the same. On a triangle, the perimeter, we just add up all the sides to equal the distance around the triangle. But its area formula is 1/2 base times height. Now the base can be any side length, and the height is going to be the distance from that base to the vertex up above it or across from it. So now the height might not actually be inside the triangle itself. We've got to look for a right angle that would contain the line that contains the base that would go up to the vertex. So right down here I said the base can be any side. The height is a segment from the vertex that forms a right angle with the line containing that base. So this would be the height if we're using this for the base right down here. Alright, let's move on. Find the perimeter and area of a square with the side equal to 3.5 inches. So if we wanted to, we could draw a square picture and label a side length 3.5, which would tell me that each one of these side lengths was all 3.5. Well, perimeter is equal to 4 times the side length. So for this particular square, we'd have 4 times 3.5 that we'd want to multiply out, which would give us a perimeter of 14 inches. Okay, we always want to label whatever our units are, so if we're given inches to start with, perimeter is just going to be the same units that we start with. Whereas area, we're going to have to take side squared, so our units are going to end up to be inches times inches or inches squared. So our area is going to be 3.5 squared, and we can come over here and do a little multiplying real quick. So 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2, 15, 17. And then 3 times 5 is 15, carry the 1, be 9 plus 1 is 10. So when we add those together, we'll get 5, 12, carry the 1 is going to be a 2 and a 1. And we have 2 decimal places here, so we're going to move our decimal over 2 spots. So our area should be 12.25. I'm going to label it inches squared. So we're going to do the problems that I have uploaded to the Lumen Touch host website. And don't worry about these problems that was assigned down here. Alright, the next example. We've got the Queen's Quilt block includes 12 blue triangles. The base and height of each triangle are about 4 inches. Find the approximate amount of fabric used to make the 12 triangles. Okay, so it says that we've got 12 triangles. I'm going to underline that in the problem real quick. It says that the base and height of each triangle is about 4 inches. So if I could find the area of one of these triangles, I should be able to multiply it times 12 and come up with about the amount of fabric that I'll need. So if I've got a triangle that's got 4 for the base and 4 for the height, well, my area formula is 1/2 base times height. So I'm going to have 1/2 times 4 times 4. So half of 4 is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. So each one of these looks to be about 8 inches squared. Well, if I have 12 of them, I'm just going to multiply that times 12. And that should give me 96 inches squared for the amount of fabric that I'll need for all 12 of these triangles. So about 96 inches squared for that particular problem. Alright, again, just do the Lumen Touch questions. Don't worry about that number 6 from page 38. Alright, we got a circle here now. We need to know a few things about a circle. Number 1, the center dot right in the middle of the circle is the center. Any line that goes all the way across through the center, goes all the way across the circle, that's the diameter. Any line that goes from the center to any point on the circle would be the radius. If I take the diameter and I divide it by 2, that will equal the radius. Or if I'm given the radius and I multiply it times 2, or twice its length, would equal the diameter. So you need to know how those two things relate to one another. The distance around the circle is the circumference. So you need to make a note of all those things in your notes so you know what we're talking about when we say diameter or radius or circumference of a circle. Alright, we got this little activity. We might actually do this in class, so we'll come back to that. A few formulas for your circles. Circumference is equal to pi times diameter, or circumference is 2 pi r. If I multiply 2 times the radius, that would be the diameter. So these two formulas are the same. The area of a circle is pi r squared. Alright, it says find the circumference and area of a circle with a radius of 14 meters. So we're going to start with the circumference, and I'm just going to write it. Notice that we're given the radius, not the diameter, so I'm going to write it as 2 pi r. So I need to take my 14 and plug that in for my r, so I'll have 2 times pi times 14. And now make sure you read your directions, because sometimes they'll just leave it in terms of pi, but I'll take 2 times 14, which is 28 pi, and then if they wanted me to put it in terms of to the nearest foot or something like that, well, I would type into my calculator 28 times, then I want to find that pi key on my calculator so that it will kick it out for me. Okay? Well, whatever that turns out, you're going to label it in meters, so we want to make sure that we put meters at the end of those answers. This would be in terms of pi, and then if I multiplied it out, this would be in terms of to the nearest tenth or so. Alright, area is equal to pi r squared. So area is equal to pi times 14 squared. So in terms of pi, I would need to multiply 14 times 14 real quick. So it looks like 196 would be in terms of pi. Now area, when I'm talking area, my units is always going to be squared. So make sure that I label my area in meters squared, and then again, I would use the pi key, 196 times the pi key, if it wanted it to the nearest meter for the answer, to the nearest tenth of a meter. So we'd multiply that out. So again, just do your Lumen Touch website questions and ignore the 8, 14, 15. We're going to skip the up one, down ones. Just finish up your Lumen Touch. Alright, if you entered a box, here they are. Good luck. Alright. And that's going to conclude our video on section 1.5 using formulas, which was over perimeter, area, and circumference.